All right, cheers. Good evening, everyone. We begin the readout tonight with a major escalation in the January 6th investigation. For the first time, the Department of Justice has filed seditious conspiracy charges related to the insurrection, charging 11 people, including the leader of the far-right militia, the Oath Keepers, Stewart Rhodes. Now, seditious conspiracy is defined as if two or more persons conspire to overthrow, put down, or destroy by force the government, or by force to prevent, hinder, or delay the execution of any law, or by force to seize, take, or possess any property. Now, in plain English, this is the first time our government has called some of the events that happened on January 6th a conspiracy to use force to prevent the presidential transition. It's important to understand who we're dealing with here. Now, unlike the randomly thuggish Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers are an organization largely of current and former military, law enforcement, and first responders. They're armed, and they're trained by our own tax dollars to know how to use those weapons. In their statement announcing the indictment, the DOJ alleges that Rhodes and his co-defendants conspired by organizing into teams that were prepared and willing to use force and to transport firearms and ammunition into Washington, D.C., recruiting members, organizing trainings to teach and learn paramilitary combat tactics, and bringing and contributing paramilitary gear. They're also accused of breaching and attempting to take control of the Capitol grounds and building, using force against law enforcement officers, and continuing to plot after January 6th to oppose by force the lawful transfer of power. The indictment also provides a timeline of the encrypted group chat messages that Rhodes sent encouraging his co-conspirators. 2 days after the election, November 5th, Rhodes urged his followers to refuse to accept the election result and states, quote, "We aren't getting through this without a civil war," unquote. On November 7th, he said, "We must now do what the people of Serbia did when Milosevic stole the election, refused to accept it, and march en masse on the nation's capital." And by November 9th, he held a call outlining a plan to stop the lawful transfer of power. The organizing and the paramilitary training continued over the next few months, with Rhodes advocating for the use of force on the Oath Keepers website. On Christmas Day, 6 days after Trump's "Be in D.C., it will be wild" tweet, Rhodes wrote, "I think Congress will screw President Trump over. The only chance we have is if we scare the S out of them and convince them it will be torches and pitchforks time if they don't do the right thing. But I don't think they will listen." The planning continued, and by January 5th, they were in the D.C. area, stocked with weapons. On the morning of January 6th, they split into two so-called stacks, one on each side of the Capitol. At around 2:12 p.m., Rhodes entered the restricted Capitol grounds. At 2:25, he instructed his co-conspirators, "Come to south side of the Capitol." And, as the DOJ notes, at approximately 2:30 p.m., Oath Keepers and affiliates, many wearing paramilitary clothing and patches with the Oath Keepers name logo and insignia, marched in a stack formation up the east steps of the Capitol, joined a mob, and made their way into the Capitol. And we all know what happened next. An insurrection ensued. Rhodes was arrested today and is currently an inmate in Collin County, Texas. The Oath Keepers are one of two major violent groups accused of orchestrating the insurrection, along with the Proud Boys, the group that Trump told to stand back and stand by during the presidential debates. The January 6th Select Committee is investigating both of these groups, but Rhodes hasn't decided yet whether he will testify. This comes as the committee is continuing to investigate the online rhetoric that led to the insurrection. Today, they subpoenaed 4 major social media companies: Alphabet, a.k.a. Google, Meta, a.k.a. Facebook, Reddit, and Twitter. Committee Chair Benny Thompson said in a press release, 2 key questions for the Select Committee are how the spread of misinformation and violent extremism contributed to the violent attack on our democracy, and what steps, if any, social media companies took to prevent their platforms from being breeding grounds for radicalizing people to violence.